Tonight, a campaign office, now a crime scene.
There are gunshots up here. They're gun bullet holes.
After a gunman allegedly opened fire on mayoral candidate Craig Greenberg Monday in Louisville, Kentucky.
A man walked into our office. When we greeted him, he pulled out a gun, aimed directly at me, and began shooting.
Greenberg says a member of his team shot and barricaded the door after the gunman fired 5 rounds. One shot just narrowly missing the Democratic candidate.
Despite one bullet coming so close that it grazed my sweater and my shirt, no one was physically harmed, and we're extraordinarily grateful for our safety.
Police say Greenberg was likely the intended target.
It does appear, however, that one individual in particular was targeted, and that is one of our mayoral candidates, Craig Greenberg.
Local elected leaders shocked by the apparent targeting of a political candidate.
Democracy is based upon, the people having the right to vote, and to think that someone would try to kill a political candidate is just really unthinkable here in our city.
Police arrested 21-year-old Quintez Brown, found with a loaded 9mm Glock handgun less than half a mile away from the campaign office. Prosecutors charged Brown with attempted murder and 4 counts of wanton endangerment. Brown, an activist and college student, previously participated in the 2018 March for Our Lives rally, a movement to curb gun violence. He had this to say on MSNBC.
I love how the emphasis is, it's like, this isn't a school safety issue, school safety issue, this is a gun violence issue, because gun violence does not affect schools, but communities, churches, clubs, everywhere. So at school, it's very hard to feel safe now because it's like a war zone.
Brown appeared in court earlier Tuesday and pleaded not guilty. He currently is being held on a $100,000 bond. During the hearing, his lawyer asked the court to take into account Brown's mental state.
I believe that there's serious mental issues at play here, and I'm going to have him evaluated immediately.
Candidate Greenberg, who campaigned on a platform to, quote, stop the violence before this incident, now says there's more work to be done.
It's not lost on me that the violence my staff and I experienced today is far too common in our city. Too many Louisville families have experienced the trauma of gun violence. Too many in Louisville were not as blessed as my team and I were today to survive.
All right, Zinclay joins us now. Zinclay, so Brown, the suspect, we heard him, he was interviewed during that march there. Do we know anything about the motive here?
Yeah, Tom. So when it comes to the motive, authorities still have not released that information. We do know that the ATF and FBI are investigating, but I did receive a statement from Brown's attorney just minutes ago. He tells us that his client is, quote, dealing with severe mental illness, and said his client needs not imprisonment, but treatment. Tom?
All right, Zinclay, we thank you for that. Still ahead tonight, that deadly plane crash off the coast of North Carolina. We told you about it last night. The plane going down with 4 high school students and 4 other adults. The discovery just made by dive teams. Also, the alarming new report on a New Jersey nursing home where bodies were found stacked in a morgue at the height of the pandemic. NBC's Emily Aketa joins Top Story tonight with the growing calls to shut down the facility and why the federal government might get involved. A lot of new reporting on this one. Stay with us. All right, now to Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin with an update on that deadly plane crash off the coast of North Carolina. Officials say dive teams have found the plane's fuselage in 55 feet of water, and more remains were discovered. Crews are now working to recover the bodies and the aircraft's data recorder. The small plane crashed on Sunday about 3 miles from the shore while carrying 4 high school sophomores and 4 other adults who were returning from a duck hunting trip. All right, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin has lost her libel lawsuit against the New York Times. A jury today rejecting her claim that the newspaper maliciously damaged her reputation when it incorrectly linked her to a mass shooting in 2011 that nearly killed former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. The verdict comes one day after the judge said he would dismiss the case. Palin is vowing to appeal. All right, 2 major upcoming music festivals have dropped all COVID restrictions. Both Coachella and Stagecoach will not require vaccinations, negative tests, or even masks when they take place in the California desert in April. And starting Thursday, Disney is dropping its indoor mask mandate for vaccinated guests at its parks in California and Florida. Masks are optional for all guests outside. And Virgin Galactic will begin selling tickets to space to the general public. The space tourism company founded by Richard Branson says starting tomorrow, people can reserve their spot for a 90-minute flight to the edge of space. The price? $450,000. Passengers will reach an altitude of more than 50 miles up, which is the FAA boundary for outer space, and experience weightlessness for about 4 minutes before returning to Earth. The trip's expected to begin later this year. All right, now to an NBC News investigation into a troubling discovery at a New Jersey nursing home. Bodies of deceased residents found stacked on top of one another during the height of the pandemic. A new state report revealing more alarming allegations of mistreatment. NBC's Emily Aketa reports.
The New Jersey nursing home where 17 bodies were found stacked in a tiny morgue in more hot water. The state's Department of Health has halted new admissions at recently renamed Woodland Behavioral Health. State officials writing the facility failed to appropriately prevent abuse and neglect, describing in a 17-page report how staff members allegedly failed to perform CPR or call 911 for 2 unresponsive patients, nor did they provide life-saving medicine to some residents with COVID as directed by a doctor. Another individual was left soiled in feces for 10 hours. Authorities say COVID infected more than 230 residents and staff at the facility in just 10 days at the end of last year. 91 residents there have died from the virus since the start of the pandemic.
It was like the worst scenario. He died alone. I know he wasn't taken care of.
Sharon Farrell's brother among those lost.
There's no reason on this earth that people live the way they are living in that facility. Who's overseeing this? Where was the state?
The state is now reviewing Woodland Behavioral's response to inspectors' concerns. The owners declined to comment for this story, but previously told NBC News the COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges, and our heroic staff faced those challenges as best as they could. Harvard professor David Grabowski helps identify best practices for nursing homes nationwide during the pandemic.
These nursing homes that are perpetually among the worst performers, they don't improve without some sort of outside activity.
Emily joins us now in studio. Emily, you know, it's just so sad what happened to all these people in that nursing home. So my question is, are there any criminal charges? Has that even been mentioned? And you were telling me earlier the federal government has already looked at this nursing home before?
Yeah, that's right. So no word on the criminal charges yet. But earlier this pandemic, the owners of this facility were fined more than $220,000 because it was not in substantial compliance with federal regulations. Tonight, the federal government says that, you know, this facility has made some improvements over the last several weeks and is coming closer to being within compliance. But if it does not continue down that path, they could go without federal funding, Tom.
All right, Emily Aketa on that investigation tonight. Emily, thank you. Time for Top Stories Global Watch and the investigation after a deadly train crash in Germany. Authorities say 2 commuter trains collided head-on